Next Radio 2018 with Broadcast Bionics. Next Radio.
Which one do I press? Oh, no. A hotbed of innovation. I love the copy. That's brilliant. We've been talking today about listening, the importance of listening and how that informs our storytelling. The importance of learning as we're continuing to teach. So I've got a nice little handle to walk away from today's exciting encounter. It is good to be here today. What's next for community radio? We have here a fine map of the British Isles, perforated with little dots by way of explaining how I come to be here. That is the locations of my community radio tours. It's my little hobby, okay? Some people put an anorak on and go and spend time on the terraces, and other people, most ill-advisedly, go down to golf courses. But in my case, I go around the UK, and I have wonderful conversations about what is happening, as James is saying, in a burgeoning area. We are the new kids on the block. So in terms of local radio, BBC celebrated 50 years last year. Commercial radios are hovering around the 45-year mark. Community radio is, generally speaking, just over a decade old, but most of the licenses here in the UK, 274 by my reckoning yesterday. So 300 commercial radio licenses, 39 BBC local radio stations. We're kind of all heading into the same territory. When will community radio overtake the others? We shall see. Anyway, I'm Dom Chambers. I do run a community radio station. I've chaired the national representative body for community media. Enough about me, let's get on with things. What is community radio? It is a separate identity to the other two licensed sectors, commercial networks and, of course, BBC. And it has a specific license, obviously arranged by Ofcom and organisations who are within the community sector are not-for-profit or charitable. That's really key. Not-for-profit doesn't actually mean no profit. Profit welcome. Any business that doesn't want to make a profit isn't a business for very long. Of course, in our case, as you would expect in the third sector, all the profits go back in. We call it a surplus. We don't go on an extended holiday to the Bahamas, but it will go into equipment and new opportunities for volunteers, which, of course, is another distinctive point of our sector. It is volunteer-orientated. Only one business, that charity, that non-profit, can own one license. These are all protective measures to distinguish it from, particularly, I would say, the commercial radio network. And I really want to emphasize this. In comparison to other networks, and I'm going to be talking about collaborative initiatives in a moment, and that's really the ethos of what many of us in our sector are trying to achieve with the other sectors. But we do have lower barriers to entry. That makes us really good on the diversity agenda and gender balances agenda. We're not quite there, but perhaps for some bizarre reason, looking around the room, I think there's a case in point here today in Next Radio, more men appear to be attracted to participate directly in the radio industry than women. But I feel that we have a proactive agenda going on in community radio to, as I say, head into a balanced territory where we possibly can. I've just come from the Community Media Conference in Sheffield, and in that room, I've never walked into a room with just such a brilliant mix of people, all there for one cause and one passion, but coming from a total variety, a microcosm of the diversity of life here in the UK. Community radio impacts, I would say, largely in two different ways, with strong overlaps between them. They impact on the individuals. This is what sustains, in so many ways, the community broadcast industry. And that is the wider people volunteer. And actually, fairly low on that list is to do something for other people. That is a significant factor. But it's about the experience that we gain. It's about the experience and the skill development that can maybe take our lives. At one level, it could be, a happy middle-class youngster at school looking for a skills-based learning. It's going to help them on their way to university and a credible career thereafter. But for others, it opens up tremendous opportunities. And the whole thing about our society at the moment and we're very focused on this in community radio, is how we're combating isolation in all its kind of problematic and ugly forms. So impact on the individual is crucial and key to understanding what community radio is about. But we also impact on audiences. We generate audiences that you're not hearing on other networks. So we empower people to speak to audiences that you're not going to hear those voices on other networks. So I've got two examples here. And in terms of the impact of the individual, here's Gillian's story.
I've met a lot of people who've said, oh, you do radio, I couldn't do that. And it's saying to them, well, actually, you could. You can come to East Coast FM. It doesn't matter what your circumstances are. You can come here, and if you want to be on the radio, you volunteer, and you can. It doesn't matter if you're shy or anything like that. You get involved in other things as well. You get to go to events, really good fun things. You meet new people. And, of course, if you have had any issues with anxiety or underconfidence or anything, it really does help. I suffer from depression, so having something like this has been great for me. It's made me feel a lot better, and I can do things. And people are saying to me, you have done something well, which sometimes you don't hear very often. Once you're on something like this, you do get a lot of encouragement, and it's great.
We've been talking about generating stories today. There is one of thousands of stories taking place in the UK right now through community media. And there she is with her guide dog, Flora. A wonderful encounter that was up at East Coast FM radio in just southeast of Edinburgh. Now, I'm conscious of the time, so I'm going to move on to how we impact on audiences. Now, this is actually from the radio station that I run, and I was just listening to this in the car the other day, and I thought, tells the story about what we're trying to do and the audiences we're attracting. This is from Summer Valley FM, Richard Harris from our Folk and Blues show.
People keep telling me there's not enough female artists, or we can't find female artists. Well, they're there. Just don't, dig around with a few community radio shows or something that don't play artists that they've sold their sound out to the narrow band of National Radio Safe or National Radio Bland FM. I mean, more than half of my CDs from What's in the Post are female artists. I don't get it. You're looking in the wrong place, guys. I'm sorry. There we are. Anyway, rant over.
Grumpy old men about to get a call, I've got a feeling. Why do we train people? Training is crucial. We are, I would say now, the principal training ground for the professional radio industries, but that's only one reason for training people. It does ensure broadcast competency. If you don't train volunteers, you haven't got a radio offering, and that's no good at all. It increases volunteer resilience, and I think that should be more of a greater interest to the government, and it also achieves fundable outcomes, and those outcomes are around isolation, about well-being, around employability. So crucial reasons for training people. I'm driving, and there's many of us at the Community Media Association and other organisations that are driving a collaborative agenda. Fine-looking chaps there on the left side of the screen. Myself as chair of the Community Media Association with David Holsworth, former head of BBC English Regions, signing our Memorandum of Understanding, and that is very relevant today, possibly even more relevant today than it was 3 years ago. And we've got, obviously, the whole small-scale DAB trial, which is still ongoing. And I thought I'd mention the Mental Health Minute, over 300 stations participating in that back in, was it May this year? And of those 300, many of those were community broadcasters joining on an equal plane with the commercial and BBC networks. And Local Radio Day, now fantastically, UKRD's initiative, fantastically supported by BBC Local Radio, and, of course, community radio. Successes and challenges can be summed up. I'll try and make this in one sentence with 15 seconds to go. And that is, we are successful because there is more community licenses being generated as we speak. There's at least 30, I think, coming online. But at the same time, the average turnover of a community radio station, as reported in the annual communications market report from Ofcom, is a drop from 74,000 in 2009 to just over 50,000 in 2017. A problem there, and it's a problem we're not going to resolve in the Time's Up moment. So what's next for community radio? This photograph was taken at the end of the Community Media Conference in Sheffield this Saturday. We are the future. What a fantastic range of people there were sitting on that panel. I've imposed the word recognition because community radio in the UK is a force for positive social change. This needs to be recognised by not only our industry, but by other government departments beyond DCMS. I think it's happening, so perhaps I end with the future of community radio is more recognition is our next step. Thank you.